Welcome, everyone, to the Asher Marketing Podcast. We provide a wide range of services, including media planning, video production, creative solutions, digital and social media strategies, website development, public relations, and printing. To find out more, visit AsherAgency.com.
My guest is Savannah Hillyard. Savannah, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I think I just said Savannah again. I keep trying to combine your first and last name.
It's okay. You're fine. You're fine.
Well, thank you for being gracious about that. And thanks for doing this. You and I, we were talking before we hit record that we met in the virtual world because you took a class that I teach about social media.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we've met in person. So it's great to meet you face to face. And you stood out, as many students do in that class, as kind of the head of the class. I felt like a lot of the stuff I was saying you already knew, but it was great to have you in the class because I think some of the other students learned from you as well.
No, it was great.
Well, you've been doing social media now how long?
Okay, officially 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Unofficially, like 2.5 years.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that in more detail in just a few minutes. But I wanted to start with your career path because, like a lot of our guests, it wasn't a direct path from this is what I want to do and now I'm doing it. Yeah. Talk us through what you were thinking about. You mentioned earlier that you're a graduate of Northrop High School here in Fort Wayne. So when you were a student at Northrop, what were you thinking about when it came to your future, if anything? And where did you go from there, and how did you pivot and all those good things?
Yeah. Actually, funny that you asked that. When I was at Northrop, my junior year, I went over to Anthus Career Center, and I started in cosmetology.
Okay.
And then by senior year, I realized, cosmetology is not what I want to do.
So did you have any experience with Karen Gilly when you were there? Is that name familiar?
That does not ring a bell.
All right. Okay. I brought the episode to a screeching halt 2 minutes in. But no, Karen's one of the teachers there and someone I know who's there. So you're at Anthus studying cosmetology.
Yes.
And you realized maybe that's not for you.
Correct.
Okay.
So my senior year, I was like, well, you know what? I think maybe I want to get into nursing. So I was like, I'm going to do the CNA program and then, transition into nursing.
Yep.
Well, actually,
and this is all at Anthus still?
This is all at Anthus.
Okay.
Yep. Great place. Actually, my senior year, I got pregnant with my first son. So I was unable to finish the CNA program.
So a little bit of a curveball.
Yep, exactly. So I went on, graduated from Northrop, and that fall semester, I was like, okay, what do I want to do?
Yep.
I at that point in time, didn't want to do nursing anymore. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to enroll at IPFW, now PFW, in elementary education.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've covered just about every career so far. All right.
I know. I did not know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, it was my first semester at IPFW, and obviously I had a baby, and I was going to class full-time in person.
Are you working during this time
yes.
too? Jeez, yeah.
So the first semester goes by, and I realized, I can't do everything.
Yeah.
So I decided the spring semester, I was like, I'm going to enroll at Ivy Tech because it was a little more flexible with my schedule. They had the night classes. They also offered some online classes. Yeah. So I did that and then went down to part-time. And that was for, at that point, office administration.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Okay. Yeah. So a long and winding road to get to the associate degree.
Correct.
So you finish at Ivy Tech with a degree in office administration. Where do you go from there? Yeah.
So during the time when I was kind of getting my degree at Ivy Tech, because that took about 2.5 years, I think, I kind of entered the finance world. I don't know how it happened. Yeah. Because numbers and me don't get along. But at that point in time, I was working at First Source Bank as a teller. Okay. After that, I went into lending for about a year. And
is this with One Main Financial?
That was with One Main.
Yep.
And I was like, no, that's not for me. So I was job searching, and I actually got a message on LinkedIn from my current employer, Sim Financial, and I had never heard of them before. But I was like, I am ready for a change. It was still the finance world, so I was like, okay, this is what I'm familiar with. So that's when I started at Sim in a client service role. So I've actually been there for almost 7 years now at Sim.
Well, going back to the job that didn't quite work out, I want to highlight that for a second because, a lot of times, and it was true for me too, there was a job, if you look at my resume, I was there for 10 months. It was good people. I was like, for the right person, this would be a great environment.
Absolutely.
But it was not for me. And I think it's really noble of you to say, hey, this isn't for me. It doesn't mean it's not for anyone, but I'm going to move on. There's a lot of people kind of get stuck and they end up in a job they don't like for longer than they need to. So good for you at a young age to say, maybe there's something better out there. So for those who aren't familiar with Sim Financial, tell us a little bit about what Sim is and how you describe it.
So we're a wealth management firm. So we do financial planning. We help with investments. We've been around for over 55 years now, 5 different locations.
And that's Warsaw, Fort Wayne.
And then we have Indianapolis, Mishawaka, and then Midland, Michigan.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. And about how many advisors altogether? Any idea?
Advisors, probably 20 to 25, I would say. We have about 70-some employees.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
So tell me a little bit about you start in client service. What does that mean? And then how does your experience there evolve over time?
So I was helping prepare reports for meetings, doing money movements for clients, upkeeping their accounts, making any changes needed. And that was about 4 years of doing that. And I was like, okay, I need a change. I'm a creative person, and I feel like that wasn't like fulfilling the creative side of like for me. So at that point, I decided to do the one thing I told myself I would never do, which was go back to school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was like, I don't ever want to do it again after I finished it the first time. But I was like, no, I think I need to get where I want to be. So at that point, I enroll in an online school for my marketing bachelor's degree. And so that was over the course of about 2.5 years. It was nice because it was online, so it was kind of flexible with my schedule. So I was doing my client service role, but during that time, we only had a marketing team of one person at Sim.
Oh, wow.
And obviously, that one person was wearing many hats.
Especially given the growth that Sim was having at that time.
We had a lot of growth really fast. And so I started helping her because, that's kind of the path I was going down. So I started helping her with things that she needed help with, which were the events and also social media. So then finally, 2.5 years later, so actually last March, I earned my bachelor's degree in marketing.
Congratulations.
I'm like, it's been a year. I can't believe that. So I had to, before I moved into my current role, which is our social media and event lead at Sim, I kind of had to train up some people to, take over my position. And then I started officially in my current role September of last year. So it's only been about 6 months officially in the role.
Well, in a minute, I want to dig into what that role involves, but I want to highlight a couple things that I think are really noteworthy. One is the fact that you hit a barrier and you said, okay, I need to be honest. The only way I'm going to overcome this if I make some investments in myself. And that's another critical pivot point that I think a lot of people make, but a lot of young people may not anticipate. It's kind of like, I'm going to get my degree, and then I'm going to be good for the rest of my life. It doesn't always work that way. I know for me, I had a bachelor's in English and a master's in English, and I was like, I'm done. I have a master's degree. But then I found that was only going to take me so far. Ended up going back for an MBA, which I don't know if it made me any smarter, probably not, but it positioned me different in the market. And it sounds like the same was true for you between an associate and a bachelor's degree. And the other thing I think that's really important to note there is finding an opportunity with the same employer. It's like you've done the work to get to know people. You obviously were a fit for the culture. The job, you were starting to, become dissatisfied with the specific job, but you found a way to move forward with that same employer. I think that's pretty great.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy to still be with Sim, and I'm happy that I had the opportunity to move into a role that I really love. So.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So you're doing social media in I think it's fair to say, highly regulated industry.
Yes.
Where there are some rules that you need to follow. So what does your work look like? How are you navigating that in terms of tapping into some of the timeliness and spontaneity that social media sometimes requires while also playing by the rules? How are you managing all that?
Sometimes it's difficult. It's sending a lot of posts through compliance before posting. But yeah, I manage our social media presence. So we are active on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and also now Instagram. We do have a YouTube as well, but we post our podcasts on there, some other videos that we do for social media, but it's not something that we update regularly.
Yeah, I think for a lot of brands, YouTube is kind of a good place to inventory video, but it's not really a social platform where you're interacting with the audience much.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So basically, I post regularly on these accounts. I'm creating content. I feel like I'm doing quite a bit of research trying to figure out what makes sense to post. Just because we're in the finance world, it's not, it's not something that can be like silly and,
you have to have a personality, but it has to be serious enough that people take you seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it is a lot of running things through compliance, making sure that we're able to say the things that we're posting. But I enjoy it. I really do. And it's been nice to finally devote time to our social media accounts because I feel like for so long we didn't have like one person who had the time to run our accounts. So now that I'm in this role, obviously I'm pretty fresh into the role, but it's nice to be able to put some love into our social media accounts.
So you're using Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Are you using those platforms in different ways, or is it kind of the same strategy applied to all the platforms? Yeah,
so I've been trying to work a bit on that. For the longest, I was doing the same strategy amongst all the accounts. I've been I'll still cross-post some things, but I feel like I'll take LinkedIn and make it more of, looking for new, like recruiting or kind of just showing the life of our culture and also more of like the business side of things. And actually I just opened the Instagram account for us, and I made our first post actually today. But because we're so highly regulated, like through the SEC, we have to archive all of our social media platforms. So it took a little time to get the Instagram archived. So it's exciting.
So how far do you have to work ahead? It's not unique to financial services that you need to run things through approvals, but about how far are you able to work ahead?
Yeah, I work a couple weeks ahead. Sometimes I'll work like a month in advance. It just kind of depends. But that definitely takes some planning and preparing. But yeah, usually a couple weeks ahead of time that I have posts scheduled to go out.
And how involved are you able to get the advisors? I know some advisors, they're not necessarily comfortable in front of the camera. That's not true of all. But how are you working with your team to showcase them and their expertise?
Yeah, so they're mainly focusing on LinkedIn. And we do have a couple advisors that like making educational videos. Some of the other advisors, they aren't comfortable with that. But we are trying to get them to at least if they're not comfortable with creating videos or creating content, at least sharing like Sims content just to, bring awareness to that as well.
Well, at the end of the day, it's a relationship business, right? There's definitely something to be said for being smart and talented in terms of the skill set, But one of the reasons people are going to choose to work with someone is because they enjoy that person's
absolutely
outlook. So, that's a piece of it. And maybe the best way to get more of them involved is just show them others having success with that.
Yeah.
So, and there's still going to be some who may never get involved, and that's okay.
Yeah. We probably will have that.
We're hitting pause for just a moment to talk about something that can transform your online presence. Asher Agency and their exceptional website services. In today's digital world, your website is often the first impression potential customers have of your business. Is yours making the right impact? At Asher, we specialize in creating stunning, custom, user-friendly websites that not only look great, but also drive results. Visit AsherAgency.com for more info.
So in terms of the tools you're using to do the work, we're going to talk about this a little bit later too, but are you using a dashboard of any kind? And if so, which one and why do you like it?
Yeah, actually, I'll talk about this a little more later because that's one of the tools that I like to use. But Social Pilot is the content calendar that I'm currently using.
Yeah.
When I first started, we were using Hey Orca. I didn't love that. It didn't have a lot of capability, I feel. And I feel like the platform wasn't really updating very often. And I feel like with this, like especially, I feel like they evolve pretty quickly. So
well, and I'm glad to hear you say that. It's actually the first time I've heard someone other than myself using Social Pilot. I'm a big fan.
I like it.
I was, and this goes back a long time ago, but I was using Hootsuite.
Okay, yeah.
And then Hootsuite changed in ways that no longer made it work for me. And I was looking for another tool. And after doing some research, I picked Social Pilot and I said, maybe I'll use this for the next year and then change again. But what you're saying about it evolving has really impressed me. The fact that they're anticipating some of the changes that are helpful to social media managers. I love the fact it's probably not unique to Social Pilot, but you can bulk add to a schedule. You can, take a CSV file and add multiple posts at once if you're in the business of scheduling ahead of time.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that works for you because I've been a fan, but I haven't heard much talk about Social Pilot.
Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in addition to the social media stuff, you're also doing events.
Yeah.
It might sound like an obvious question, but what does that involve?
Oh, yeah, it involves quite a lot. So like we said earlier, we have 5 different locations. So I run and manage all of our events for all 5 of our offices. So that's including internal events and also external.
Okay.
Yeah. So internal, we have 2 big employee events every year, which is we have a summer outing where we get all the employees together over the set of 2 days. And then our company Christmas party where spouses are invited.
Yep.
External events, we have client appreciation events, luncheons. We also do a lot of sponsorships.
Okay.
So it's kind of, I run everything from start to finish on these events. From creating the invite lists to making an invite, sending the invite out, tracking the RSVPs, working with venues, caterers.
Wow. That's a lot more than I would have imagined. So it's kind of like you're always working on at least one event. It's just a matter of which one.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Well, let's pivot to some quick hit questions that kind of bring together some of the things we've discussed. So you took a lot of time, as did I, and as do many others, to kind of explore career options. And it sounds like you've landed in a place where you're happy.
Yes.
What have you learned in that about having a successful, fulfilling career? What do you think is some advice that others might benefit from hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just be open to change and willing to explore any new opportunities that you might be interested in. Because obviously I'm not where I originally thought I was going to start, and that's okay. I feel like we're always evolving as people, and it's okay to change things up if you want to.
Well, and one of the things I heard you say is that, financial services your intent wasn't, I'm going to go into this industry, but you've built a really solid career in that industry. So
absolutely.
Maybe don't be so quick as to opt out of an entire industry.
Yeah.
every employer is going to be a little bit different. But if you're not sure, say yes, and then if it's not for you, you can always switch industries, but you might find something you enjoy.
Agreed.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. How about, next question, the biggest myth or misconception about the work that you do? Now, this could be about the financial advisory world. It could be about social media. It could be about events. Something that you think people believe to be true that in your experience is not true.
Okay. Let me think about this. I feel like with the social media side of things, I feel like that sounds like that can be easy, especially if you're not in that world at all. It sounds like maybe just slapping a post together when really
your job is so fun.
There's a lot of thought behind it, and especially with the industry I'm in, the compliance approval side of things. It might not always. My first thought of the way I wanted to post something might not be the end result. So it's a lot more than just slapping something online.
Well, most people who have that perception, who think that being a social media manager is fun or, just fun, it can be fun.
Absolutely.
But it's based in personal experience of using these platforms to connect with family and friends, which is fun, right? And you get to, you don't have to generally edit what you say.
Right.
You don't have to generally deal with people who are going to, give you some negative blowback. And you don't have to constantly be on a schedule where you have to create content.
Right.
And then you get to doing it as a professional, and all of those things are true. It's like you have to be careful about what you say. You're representing a brand. You have to continually be creating content and coming up with ideas, and you have to respond to the needs of the audience. So it can be very fulfilling, it can be enjoyable, but it's still work. And personal experience doesn't really apply to when you're doing it professionally.
Agreed. Yeah, because I love social media outside of work. But it's not the same as it is at work. So
quick digression from that. If you were talking to a young person about who's maybe saying, hey, I really like social media, I may want to do it as a job, what advice would you give them, maybe cautionary or otherwise, to prepare them for the reality of doing that work?
I think some advice or caution I would give them is it's ever-changing. Some strategy that might have worked a year ago might not work now. It's not the same as just posting for fun. I love to post TikToks. I think it's a good time, but it's not the same. And you have to have, content ideas coming all the time to have a regular, posted schedule. So I would say just make sure you're okay with all of that before just jumping into it, because it can be so fun outside of work. But when it becomes work, it might become something that you don't enjoy doing as much.
Well, and that you've led me to two more healthy digressions. One having to do with idea generation. What tools or strategies do you use to generate new ideas? Are you following competitors? Are you following blogs? How are you generating ideas on an ongoing basis?
So one of the ways that I generate ideas is we have monthly topics that we talk about at work. So I've been trying to pull some content from that. Just trying to create different things, working with our SMEs. That's actually a new thing that I'm trying to incorporate. Like I said, I'm still rather new into this role. So I was trying to, we're still trying to nail down a strategy. But that's one of the ways. We do write blogs. So I'll pull content from blogs. We'll do some videos with our chief investment officer. So that's a great way to pull in video content. Podcasts that we do. And I like to repurpose content too, because I feel like, especially podcasts, you spend a lot of money,
for sure, making
them. So I try to repurpose some of our old content. I'll use AI sometimes to help me come up with new ideas when I'm feeling like I'm in a slump and I can't think of anything. Sometimes I will go look at competitors' pages just to see what they're posting, just to try to, come up with more ideas from that as well.
Well, that's really good advice, and I especially like the advice about repurposing content. Things have gotten so fragmented that there's really little danger of talking about something too much that it overwhelms the audience with repetition. The bigger danger is not making good use of the content that you're working hard to produce. So
Absolutely.
I really like that advice.
Yeah.
Another digression from your earlier comment. How do you manage the stress, if you will, of being a social media manager? And I'll explain what I'm talking about. This was inspired when you were talking about people saying, social media is fun because, I'm connecting with my family and friends and making TikToks and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there's no imperative to be available. When you're a social media manager, it's kind of like you have to always be available because you never know when something's going to blow up, but you can't be available 24/7, especially if you have young kids. So how are you doing that? How are you managing that?
I will say Sim is a really great company, and I feel like they don't expect me to be available 24/7.
Yep.
I will say I have no problem checking my phone if anything needs, there's been times where there's a spelling error or,
sure.
But I will say a lot of the content we post is throughout the week during business hours. So that makes it a little easier to manage for me because then I am available to fix things if needed or, if something comes up. I know one time we had created this post and it was about some timely matter. Well, in the time that we had it scheduled to be posted and it posting, that was like no longer like they had came out and they're like, no, that's not it anymore. So I had to hurry up and take it down, which was no problem because I do try to post the content during business hours.
But it sounds like that's a rarity in your world.
Yeah, it really is.
It's different than, there have been a number of times that Asher's worked with, just as one example, restaurants, where a lot of the activity is going to be Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday.
Absolutely.
And you just have to staff that differently than you would if it's something more like financial services, which follow the flow of the work week. All right. Well, I took us down a path there, but it was a good path.
That was a good one.
So the last quick hit question for you, and you may have already answered this, but what is or you can change it up if you want. What is a tool that you use that is helpful to you in terms of helping you be more efficient or more effective at work? And it doesn't have to be a digital tool, but it can be something you use that you think deserves a shout out.
Yeah, I think I will go back to Social Pilot. So it was really nice when I started in the role 6 months ago. Sim kind of, gave me the ability to kind of choose what tool I wanted since I was going to be the one mainly using it. And I decided that Hayworka just wasn't exactly what I needed. So I did a little research, did some cost comparisons between different content calendars. Social Pilot came back as kind of my top pick. And I just really like it because I'm able to schedule my content out. Because like I said, I like to, work in advance. Another big thing, I just like it, especially when I'm like, I don't fully have like the content created, but I have like ideas. I'll throw notes on certain dates of, hey, I think I want to post this on this date, but I'm not there yet. But I'll get there. So that was nice because that was something that Hayworka did not offer was having notes on like specific dates. The other thing I like about it is the analytics. I'm not sure if you go on there and look at the analytics, but I feel like it's nice to look at that versus having to go to every single like social media platform and looking at the analytics that way, because we all know Meta is scary to look at. So it's nice to pull the analytics and just have them in one space right there, just to see maybe what's working on certain posts, what's not working, and then kind of change the strategy up from there. Well,
I could probably learn a lot from you because I think I'm using about 1% of Social Pilot's capabilities.
I just started exploring it more, but I'm really enjoying the analytics side.
Well, and the other thing, and this is, we're not sponsored by anyone, but one other thing with Social Pilot is pretty affordable too, which is when you're managing finances is probably a good thing. Yes.
We try to be efficient and not go too crazy on the spending. So I was trying to find something that was reasonably priced, but still had everything that I needed. And I was surprised because some of them become really pricey.
Oh, for sure.
Social Pilot was really affordable.
Well, and there are some capabilities that, some of the larger dashboards, Sprout's a good example, that it's a great tool.
Yeah.
But if the cost isn't quite in line with what you're looking for, there's other good choices out there.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, Savannah, thank you for that advice and for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's great to get to know you a little better and to hear more of your story.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.
We'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to reach out to us at hello@asheragency.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us reach more listeners. For additional resources and updates, visit our website at asheragency.com. Thanks for tuning in.